All right, folks, I want to call the meeting to order. This is a regularly scheduled Greer City Council meeting called and convened this evening of December the 10th, 2013. This will be the last meeting that we will have in 2013, so let me take this opportunity to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, albeit a little bit early. But enjoy the holiday season. We had a great weekend this past weekend in terms of our tree lighting parade and other events. And we'll be having a number of things going on in our downtown Trade Street area through the holiday season. I would encourage you to get out and to come down on an evening one night or on a weekend and check things out. As you can see, decorations are up and there are a lot of opportunities for shopping, dining, and other things for your pleasure in downtown Greer. So I would urge you to take advantage of that. You can stay away from the malls and spend some money in Greer, and we would appreciate it. So with that, we are going to stand, and we're going to ask Boy Scout Troop 107 from the Taylor's First Baptist Church if they would lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance, and then if you will remain standing, I will do the invocation, and we will move on with the meeting from there. So, gentlemen, it's your pleasure. You lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Join me, if you would, in prayer. Lord, we are indeed grateful for this day that you have given us and the blessings that it has held for us. We thank you for health and strength and for bringing us here tonight. Thank you for the calling that you have placed upon our lives to lead this city, and we pray that you'll give us insight and understanding and knowledge and leadership abilities and skills as we address the issues before us this evening. Help us to be mindful of the many citizens and the need and their needs in our city tonight. Help us to have empathy and sympathy as well for those needs, and help us to be mindful throughout the year of those that are less fortunate than us. Thank you for our dedicated employees and what they do to serve this city. We ask all these things in your Son's name. Amen. Amen. We set aside a portion of our meeting for public comment. This is the public forum session of our meeting tonight. We do ask that you sign up for that opportunity to speak relative to things that are on the agenda. I don't think I saw anyone take advantage of that this evening. Ms. Duncan, anyone to appear in public forum?
No, sir.
All right. With that, then, we'll move to the minutes of our council meeting. Council, you have the minutes from the November 26, 2013 meeting. I'll entertain a motion that they be received.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any items of note for the clerk? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Ms. Bookert?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. It is my pleasure this evening to recognize some employees. We've got some that have reached milestones in their employment with the city. And we also have one that is, I started to say graduating tonight. I don't know if he's graduating or not, but he is going to take advantage of retirement. So Bill Ryman is going to be retired from the city, and unfortunately Bill was unable to join us this evening, but we have a gift that we will present to Bill, and this certificate of appreciation that says, "Congratulations upon your retirement from the city of Greer. Presented an appreciation of 14 years of dedicated service to the city of Greer from May 13th, 1999 to January 10th, 2014. Bill Ryman, given this day at Greer, city of Greer. And with that, we want to wish Bill the best in his retirement and thank him for his service. If you would, join me in a round of applause for Bill, even in his office. We want to recognize some other folks as well, and I want to read a resolution in regards to commending some of our employees that have reached milestones in terms of their service. I will read the resolution and then recognize those folks individually. The resolution says, whereas the City of Greer endeavors to recognize and reward its dedicated and faithful employees, and whereas J.B. Carson has served in the Public Service Department for 5 years, Lisa Elliott has served in the Administration Department for 5 years, Jeffrey Hemrick has served in the Police Department for 5 years, Drew Holloman has served in the Fire Department for 5 years, Bill Mork has served in the Public Services Department for 5 years, Michael Paulson has served in the Parks and Recreation Department for 5 years, Ray Schaefer has served in the Public Services Department for 5 years, Laura Swain has served in the Public Services Department for 5 years, Sally Wise has served in the in the Parks and Recreation Department for 5 years. Well, we hired a lot of people 5 years ago. Busy year for us. Warren Douglas has served in the Fire Department for 10 years. Taylor Graham has served in the Fire Department for 10 years. Vernon Jameson has served in the Fire Department for 10 years. Ashley Wright has served in the Police Department for 10 years. And Kevin Holtzclaw has served in the Fire Department for 20 years. Whereas these employees have served in a distinguished and professional manner, now be it therefore resolved that the City Council of Greer, South Carolina, in a meeting duly assembled, wishes to officially recognize and commend these employees for their distinguished and dedicated service. Be it further resolved, the City of Greer hereby rewards these dedicated employees with a certificate of appreciation and a personal day off with pay, approved this, the 10th day of 2013. For all of this, folks, just give them a big hand. And if you will join me in the front when I call your name, please. Lisa Elliott. Thank you. Stay right up here. We'll get a picture of everybody. Yeah. Jeffrey Hemrick. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Drew Hallman.
Mayor, there, Drew and Kevin both are out on house fire right now.
Oh, gracious.
Ah.
Well, that's his job, and that's why we appreciate it. Bill Moore. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Laura Swain. Thank you. Appreciate it. Sally Wise. Thank you. Appreciate it. Ashley Wright. Is that half a clap you got? Or? And Kevin, who is out. Give these folks a round of applause, please. Well, with that, we'll move to a presentation this evening. We have with us employees from the S. Preston Douglas and Associate firm who has conducted our annual financial audit, and they will be presenting the findings and results of the 2012-2013 audit. And All right, David, you want to tee this up for us then, please, sir? Mr. Seifert will give us a lead into that presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We are pleased to bring to you tonight an exciting few minutes coming up to bring the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or what we commonly call the CAFR, to you, is the audited operational results of the past fiscal year. Tonight we have with us Mr. Johnny Britt, who is a partner, and Mr. Lee Grissom, who was the auditor in charge during the field work while they were here. And they are from the Lumberton, North Carolina office. So we will let Mr. Britt present the audit to you.
Thank you, Mr. Seifert.
Mayor, Town Council. I'd like to first of all turn to the letter of transmittal on page 7. Everyone has a copy of the CAFR, as Mr. Seifert referred to, I guess. On page 7 there, the third paragraph, I read, the City of Greer's financial statements have been audited by S. Preston Douglas & Associates, LLP, a firm of licensed CPAs. The goal of the independent audit was to provide reasonable assurance that the statements for the city for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2013 are free of material misstatement. The independent audit involved examining on a test basis evidence supporting the amounts and disclosures in the statements, assessing the accounting principles used, and significant estimates made by management, and evaluating the overall financial statement presentation. The independent auditor has concluded, based upon the audit, that there was a reasonable basis for rendering an unqualified opinion that the city's financial statements for the year ended June 30, 2013 are fairly presented in conformity with GAAP. An unqualified opinion represents the highest level of assurance. The independent auditor's report is presented as a component of the financial section of this report. This means that the information stated herein, we feel, is fairly presented and can be relied upon as such by City Council. Let's turn to page 25 to follow up on page 7 there, which were comments from City Administrator Ed Rickers and Director of Finance David Seifert. On page 25 is the independent auditor's report. We can look at the first statement there, the report on the financial statements. On page 25, we have audited the financial statements of the governmental activities, the business type activities, and the discretely presented component unit, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information for the City of Greer as of and for the year ended June 30, 2013, and the related notes to the statements, which collectively comprise the basic financial statements as listed in the table of contents. On page 26, we can turn over to the opinion related to those statements just mentioned. In our opinion, based on our audit of the financial statements referred to above, present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the governmental activities, the business type activities, and the discretely presented component unit of each major fund, and the remaining fund information of the city as of June 30, 2013, and the respective changes in financial position and cash flows. So to reiterate what was just mentioned in the letter of transmittal, this is our report indicating that this information is fairly stated based upon our opinion. Any comments or questions? And we do invite questions and or comments during this presentation of myself and or Mr. Seifert. If not, let's turn to page 44. Page 44 is the statement of net position. It statement of net position gives you a financial position as of a point in time. It shows your assets, liabilities, and your net position, or net worth, so to speak. It's the old balance sheet showing assets, liabilities, and equity. The statement of net position is as of June 30, 2013, and this is a nice picture of what you started out with for the new year, that being July 1, 2013. Again, it shows the assets of the city, the governmental activities in column 1, the business type activities in column 2, and then the component unit over there in column 4, which relates to the Greer Trust and the Greer Recreation areas. Looking down the assets and the governmental activities, and under the current assets there, we see cash and investments at over $9,600,000, taxes receivable at $184,000, other accounts receivable at $390,000, and looking down from inventory on down through the rest of the assets there, at current assets, over $10,495,000 related to governmental activities. Investment capital assets below that, over $37 million for total assets of $47,761,000. Another asset item referred to as deferred outflows of resources related to bond issuance costs, $123,000. So we're looking at a total asset page there of over $47 million. On the next page, 45, we look at the liabilities associated with those assets. Current liabilities, we're looking at governmental activities again, over $3,300,000. Long-term liabilities associated with capital assets there, long-term meaning due in more than 1 year, over $19,690,000. So total liabilities for the governmental activities at June 30, 2013 at $23,027,000. Of course, when you're looking at the statement of net position, your financial status as of a point in time, that being the end of the year, you take your liabilities of over $23 million from your assets of over $47 million, and you get your net position. And we see our total net position in the governmental activity area of over $24,856,000. Again, when you're looking at a financial status at a point in time, you want to compare especially your current liabilities. We see in the governmental activities there, our current liabilities at $3,300,000. We want to compare that to our current assets on page 44. Current assets being over $10,495,000, and take note of the cash making up a major portion of that $10 million at $9.5 million. So we see we've got over a 3-to-1 ratio there, current assets to current liabilities. So that tells us the financial status was excellent as of the end of the year. I would like to refer to our investment on page 83. If we could turn our investment in capital assets, if we could turn to page 83 and hold page 44 there. On page 83, we see our investment in capital assets on 44 at $37,266,000. On page 83, we have the breakdown of those assets, a detail on that. If you look in at the ending balance column there of the capital asset activity, we have beginning balances and then transactions during the year, and then the ending balance, which matches the total capital assets on page 44, and we see the breakdown there between the land, infrastructure, buildings, furniture and fixtures, and then associated depreciation with those assets. So our net investment again at over 37 million, which is the matches up with our totals there on page 44. Also on page 45, I would like to refer to current and long-term debt on page 94. If you could turn to page 94 briefly, so we could look at a breakdown there, a little detail on the. We look on page 44, the current portion of long-term liabilities there at over $2 million, and the long-term portion over $19 million. And on page 94, we see the detail on the long-term obligations. Of course, the beginning balance at July 1, 2012, and then the ending balance at June 30, 2013. And the various breakdowns there between general obligation bonds, installment purchases, revenue bonds, and compensated absences. And of course, we see that figure to be at June 30 over $21,905,000, which again matches the current and long-term portion on page 45. So what this statement tells us, it gives us a picture again at the end of the year of the financial shape the city of Greer is in to start out the new year. And again, this tells us that looking at a net position and our unrestricted net position on page 45 specifically at over $6,600,000, that city's in excellent financial shape as of June 30, 2013. Okay, that's the major and a most important statement for starting out the new year. I want to talk about revenues and expenditures that kind of got us to that position this past year. Are there any questions about the statement of net position? Okay, if not, let's turn to page 61, which is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. And page 61 is a detail of the front statement. It shows the major revenues associated with the city, as well as the expenses broken down by department. Again, on page 61, we're looking down the revenues there in the third column. Of course, this shows budget, final budget, and actual amounts. So in the third column, we're going to be looking down the actual amounts. Under revenues there again, property taxes, Greenville and Spartanburg, we see those figures there, $7 million and $1.9 million. So the major revenue source for the city of Greer. Franchises and licenses, we see CPW fee and business licenses, $1 million and over $4,700,000. And then looking down the rest of the various revenues there, under the actual amounts again, we see the various revenue items on page 61 and on page 62. Again, looking down the third column there, broken down, detailed intergovernmental revenue, fire fees, fines and forfeitures, grants. Total revenues this past year in the general fund, the general operating fund of the city, over $17,620,000. Okay, so our total revenues there of over $17 million. On page 63, we'll look at the expenditures. The expenditures here broken down by various departments and areas. General government, you can scan down those expenditures. Again, the third column, the actual amounts. General government investment there of over $5 million related to the various detailed items there. Public safety. Expenditures of over $7,171,000. On page 64, public service, recreation, community development, capital outlay. So our total expenditures this past year, $15,909,000. Again, we're looking at it as of June 30, 2013 for the year then ended. So netting our expenditures against our revenues, we have increased our fund balance there due to revenues and expenditures by $1,711,000. Other financing sources on page 65 netted out to a negative 88,962 there in the general fund. So our net increase in fund balance was $1,622,584. So fund balance at the end of the year, $5,004,000. Look at fund balance. Of course, the town has a policy related to fund balance and what it wants to attain that fund balance to be. When looking at fund balance, you want to look at your total expenditures. And of course, we just went over our total expenditures there at 15.9. So we're looking at $16 million. So, dividing that by 12, we come up with a monthly expenditure amount of over $1,300,000, and looking at that at over a 3 to 4 month period, which is kind of where you want to be in fund balance. We're kind of dead on in the fund balance situation there at $5,004,000. Okay, are there questions about that? So, again, we're looking at 3 to 4 months of operations there in fund balance. So, in a state of economic downturn, much has occurred maybe in 2008, 2009 here, you want to have something to fall back on, of course, and again, you're preparing for expansion here in the city of Greer, so that fund balance needs to be in that area or higher.
You referenced our policy.
Yes.
What is your firm's recommendation of the percentage of fund balance to expenditure?
It depends upon your location, but David, correct me if I'm wrong. I think yours is at 35% presently, and you're approaching that. You're getting close to that now.
Right about 28.
And again, if you're on the coast, I would say 8 to 9 months, and it's due to catastrophic events. We have some municipalities associated with the coast, and FEMA's not always 5 or 6 months down the road in helping the city. So in situations like that, you have to have a buildup of fund balance to get you through those times. I think you're right on target as far as that 35% goes. You need to be looking at 3 to 4 months. And I think to further expand on that policy, David, maybe you can speak to that as to when you get over that policy amount, what are your options? And does council understand what the options are when fund balance reaches a certain amount? Maybe Ed, you can speak to that.
Absolutely. Our first option is to reduce millage that has been assessed for fund balance replacement. That would be our first option that we would recommend. And then, of course, once we maintain that 35% or better, then we would look at capital projects, road paving, sidewalks, those types of capital outlays that would be additional to your traditional operational expenses.
And again, I think what Ed just mentioned gets back to expansion and getting over that figure, and in council's mind and preparing for the future, if it gets over that figure, I think you have some goals there you want to meet. You have a plan. I know you have a plan in place looking into the future. And
well, my question just basically was, you've seen our policy. Do you agree with it? Is
Yes,
that
I
what
do.
you would recommend
Yes,
another
I
municipality?
do.
like this? Okay.
I think it protects the taxpayers. It protects the taxpayers while also giving council a chance to look into the future and what's upcoming. So, yes. And by the way, I didn't mention management's discussion and analysis, which is in the front. The MD&A is referred to, which is management's discussion of the financial position of the town and what's transpired in the past and what's going on now. But I would say that the city administrator and the director of finance and staff did a nice job with that. So I would encourage council to review that, read that, because it gives an outside reader, and of course you all aren't outside readers, but it gives you a very nice synopsis of what's transpired in the town, in the city over the past 3 to 4 years, and what's happened. I could read that, and I knew that 4 or 5 years ago things were tight. Correct me if I'm wrong. Things were tight. Council made adjustments, millage adjustments at that time, and the fund balance is back on even keel now. So anyway, the management discussion and analysis gives a nice picture of what's transpired here in layman's terms. So I would encourage you to certainly review that. Okay, so we've discussed revenues and expenditures, and we know that our assets and liabilities and net position, we're in good shape net position wise. I do want to look at page 68, which is the proprietary funds, and basically this relates to stormwater. On page 68, proprietary funds are self-sustaining funds. In other words, the expenditures are to be taken care of by relevant charges for services. Again, on page 68, we're looking at statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. We have stormwater and internal service fund there, the internal service funds related to health insurance premiums and disbursements related to claims. Looking down the stormwater revenues there, over $709,000, operating expenses over $118,000. So our net income before any transfers was at $592,864. Internal service funds, we see our health insurance premium revenue there and the health insurance claims. So our net increase there at $213,000. Again, these funds are supposed to be self-sustaining. And indeed, over this past year, they were. Any questions or comments there? If not, I would like to turn to page 131. 131 deals with the property tax levies and collections. And of course, this is an important schedule due to the fact that property tax, ad valorem taxes, are a major source of revenue for the city of Greer. And what's important here, if we look at the collections, the total collections to date, of course, we can look down from 2004 on. Again, this is a 10-year schedule here from 2004 through 2013. In the final column there, percentage of levy, we see from 2004 that percentage has gone from about 85 up to almost 99. So the importance of that collection rate is major, because again, we're talking about the major revenue source of the city of Greer. And of course, those collections are coming from the counties. The city of Greer does not participate in direct collection of the property tax. But indeed, at the county level, that has been taken care of appropriately. Any questions or comments there? That's an important percentage, obviously, because again, it deals with the major revenue source for the city of Greer. There were some other statements and schedules requested by management that I review this evening. If we could turn to page 48. And again, questions or comments related to any of these statements as we peruse and discuss them are welcome. On page 48 through 51, we're going to be looking at the balance sheet for the governmental funds. Again, and these governmental funds, this is detailed. It's got the general fund assets. We're looking at 48 and 49. We're looking at the assets of the general fund we see there in the first column. And then a detail on the other funds associated with governmental activity. Specifically, we'll look over at local hospitality and accommodations taxes and public service 40% fund. We can see in the those three funds, especially the general fund there, total assets at over $6,451,000. Hospitality over $407,000, and public service over $38,000. Again, we're looking at the assets there. We turn over to page 50 and look at associated liabilities with those particular funds we just mentioned. Again, in the first column on page 50, the general fund, liabilities there at over $853,000. Deferred inflows of resources, $124,000. So again, looking at the taking the assets and deducting our liabilities and deferred inflows there, we see our fund balance, our net there at the bottom of $6,451,000, of which $5,300,000 is unassigned. Again, under hospitality, our assets were at over $407,000. Our liabilities at $5,000. So we have the fund balance there at $402,000. And public service, our assets were at $38,559. Our liabilities at $93,609, and resulting in a negative fund balance there of $55,050. Looking down those assets and liabilities associated with any of those funds in the governmental area, are there any questions? Again, the general fund, the key fund for the city of Greer. So we see over $6 million in assets, less than a million there in liabilities, resulting in the fund balance of over $5,400,000. If not, let's discuss on page 54 again, we're in the same funds. We've been just run down the revenues and expenditures associated with those various funds in the governmental area, which resulted in those assets and liabilities we just discussed. On page 54, in the general fund again, as we have been over our detail on the general fund revenues at over $17 million, in the hospitality area over $1.5 million, and in the public service 40% fund over $918,000. Expenditures associated with those three funds specifically on page 56 and 57. The general fund again, expenditures associated with the revenues of over $17,600,000, expenditures of $15,900,000, and in the hospitality fund, expenditures of over $85,000 associated with revenues at $1,500,000, and then in public service, expenditures of $860,000, and the corresponding revenue there of over $918,000. So an increase, net increase there in fund balance of over $57,000 in public service, 40% fund. Okay, questions or comments there about revenues or expenditures associated with any of the detailed funds of the governmental area? Any comments from management related to those? Okay, let's turn to page 66. We're going to look at page 66 through 68. Of course, we went down we did discuss the revenues and expenses associated with stormwater and internal service funds. Again, the revenues and expenses, and we noticed that the revenues exceeded the expenses in stormwater and internal service funds. Now we're at the statement of fund net position for the proprietary fund. And we're looking at the current assets of stormwater at over $1,000,001. Current liabilities over $204,000. Net position in stormwater over $912,000. Internal service funds, we see our total assets over $351,000. Liabilities associated with the fund at over $199,000. Our net position over $151,000. So those funds are in nice shape as of the end of the year. Also, one other, actually a note on page 87. We would like to cover which relates to the city's ARC contribution. The ARC contribution, the city's annual required contribution related to health care benefits there. We see the again on page 87, the annual required contribution there at $40,296. The contribution made of $40,296. Any questions there? Well, let's turn over a page to page 88 and briefly look at OPEB, other post-employment benefits on page 88. You can look down at the middle of the page there. The actual aerial accrued liability was $894,361. The unfunded amount of $153,818 as of the end of the year. Any questions or comments there related to that, council and or management?
So we still need 153 to have that completely funded, so.
Yes, and
On the prior
David, do you have any other comments on that?
Just from the prior page, the 40,000 is paying that down. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, and on page 89, the next page, of course, the looking at the under items 2C there, risk management, the second paragraph, the city accounts for its self-insured employee health benefits program in an internal service fund. Funds are appropriated in the general fund to cover claims, administrative costs, and other liabilities. The city is contracted with a third-party administrator to process and pay claims incurred under the program. Medical claims exceeding $50,000 per individual are covered under a specific stop-loss policy through a private insurance company. An estimate for health benefit claims that were incurred on or before June 30, 2013, but were unreported at that time, has been accrued in the internal service fund. And changes in the reported liabilities are as followed below. We see for the year ended June 30, 2013, the ending balance there at $199,016, and you can see the beginning balance as of the beginning of the year, July 1, 2012, at 182, and then current claims and changes, $2,004,000, claim payments $2,003,000, ending balance $199,000. Any comments or questions there? If not, let's look at page 106 through 109. Through 109 relate to special revenue funds, and we're looking at the on page 106 through 109. We're going to look at the assets and liabilities as well as the revenues and expenditures associated with those funds. Under the assets there, we're going to look at two specific funds, and you can peruse the others as I denote these fund assets. The facilities use fund there, the assets in those, and that fund over $146,000, and the federal confiscations fund, assets in that fund over $1,249,000. Liabilities associated with those two funds under facilities use, $10,469, leaving us a fund balance of over $146,000 there. And then the federal confiscations fund, liabilities of only a couple of $100, leaving us a fund balance of over $1,249,000. Any questions or comments about the assets or liabilities associated with the special revenue funds there? If not, we'll turn over to page 108 and 9 and look at the revenues associated with those special revenue funds. Again, I'm going to denote the facilities use fund and the federal confiscations fund. And you can peruse the other revenues and expenditures. Facilities use revenues over $168,000, expenditures over $136,000, so our net increase in fund balance there of over $31,000. Under federal confiscations fund, our revenues there just over $9,400, expenditures over $235,000, so a net decrease in fund balance of over $225,000, but of course there was more than sufficient fund balance to take care of that expenditure over revenue amount for this past year of $1.4 million. So again, we get back to the fund balance we just discussed on the balance sheet for the federal confiscations fund of $1.2 million.
If I may, relative to the federal confiscations fund, we report each year during the police department's annual report the status of that, what we are expending funds on. Our objective with that fund, by federal requirement, is that we would be depleting that fund as we continue to move forward. Our objective in that is to ultimately deplete that fund.
Okay, let's turn to page 120 briefly. And we'll just briefly mention the agency funds. Now, the agency funds are not actually funds of the city, but the city is actually acting in a fiduciary capacity. And I would invite comments from the city administrator or the finance director related to these funds and the assets associated therewith. But indeed, looking down at the last two line items there on page 120, we see our total agency fund assets, cash and cash equivalents. The balance at June 30, 2013, $437,764, and of course the liabilities associated therewith, $437,764. So again, these are essentially funds held in trust by the city for the various agency funds. Any comments or questions about the agency funds? If not, on page 123, there is the stats. There's a stats section, statistical section, which talks about trends and revenue capacity, debt capacity. All this information compiled by the city and management, and of course this is all part of the CAFR process. Of course you can look at that and see trends over the past many years and get a good picture of what has transpired. Mayor, that's all I have. I invite any questions or comments from council and or management at this time.
Going back to page 131 on the percentage of levy, and we're at,
Yes, sir.
almost 100%. I guess that's what you say.
Yes.
But as you see from that 10-year period, it goes from a low of 85 to a high of 98. Is that what you normally see when you do audits?
No. And of course, my first question, having been involved in looking at these percentages, I thought, I'll bet, because I knew that the counties were involved in the tax collection process, and many times we run into city organizations that are not structured properly to bill and collect property taxes. So my first thought was, I'll bet they changed from city to county collection, because the county departments are many times more capable than a small city. And of course, Greer is not in the town area there as far as population goes, but that is not the case, as I understand, as I have made question of management. Actually, county obviously has made some internal changes related to whether it be personnel or collection process or procedures that has improved the collection percentages for cities that are using that service provided by the county. So I would add, if you
What
were
percentage
David,
do you normally see?
well, it depends upon town size and city size. If I'm looking back to 2004, unusual situations, we can see high 70s to mid 80s. The norm now is 95 to 99. Okay? And again, that's a good question, and that's the key figure, that collection percentage. Again, that's the, we're talking $9-10 million there, so that's a major revenue source for the city.
One of the things that we do for planning purposes, especially during the budget process, you'll typically see that we'll project collections at about 95%. And that obviously is a little below what we are actually collecting. But you can also see there are years that there may be 91%, there's a year that could be 87%, things can happen in that. What we've seen as the collection rates have increased, it's been primarily as an increased and better use of technologies that are used in that process of billing and collecting. The other thing that we find that happens is that in reassessment years, remember because we're in 2 counties, in reassessment years, if there are appeals to reassessment, that will cause that number to decrease. And that's one of the reasons that we will see some fluctuation in that. And because we have the 2-county issue, we don't do it just every 5 years. For us, it's every 2 to 3 years. We, again, will typically project collection at about 95% of assessed rate.
And again, in the third column there, we can, you see the total levy, which has gone from just over $5 million in 2004 to over $9 million in 2013. And again, obviously with expansion, and which is understood is coming and planned for, that collection rate's a key figure.
Council, other questions?
Yes.
Comments? Mr. Seifert, any comments, questions?
Not at this time, man. Unless you have some questions.
Mr. Driggers, anything to add?
As always, we certainly invite you as you continue to look through this document. It's 148 pages. With a light agenda tonight, I had anticipated literally reading the audit to you tonight, but we decided better. We cannot be more pleased when an independent auditor objectively and subjectively has the responsibility of reviewing our policies, our procedures, our financial statements, and then comes into this room in an independent nature and reports to you that the financial status of the city is excellent. We could ask for no better position for us to be in. But as has been indicated in other comments relative to the city this past year, that doesn't happen by luck. There are very intentional financial policies that are put into place. There are very intentional policies and procedures that are put into place of how we manage the resources that are given to us. It is council's responsibility to set those policies. It is management's responsibility to implement those and adhere to those. And with a financial report that we've received tonight, I do believe that we are, with a great degree of confidence, are able to report to our citizens, to the constituents of our community, that the financial position of our city is strong. But it's because we are looking toward the future. And therefore, our policies and our procedures and our practices that are in place, it is important for us to continue those as we continue to move forward so that we maintain that strong position. My hat is off to Mr. Seifert and his staff in the finance department. They do a very, very good job. They do an excellent job of making sure that we are doing as you have indicated we should do. And we will continue to review those policies and procedures with you on an annual basis. and we will continue to strengthen the financial position of this city as we continue to grow. So we thank you for your leadership in allowing us to do that. I will echo the comments made of our auditor, and that I do encourage you to take a look at the transmittal letter. The intent of the transmittal letter at the very beginning of the document is intended to give you a snapshot of where we are and where we are going. And if you have the opportunity to review that, we would hope that that would be the springboard of additional questions or comments that you may have in the coming months as we continue to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well said, Mr. Driggers. I would just like to add, I noticed last month you recognized the, I guess, management and Director of Finance and staff for the Certificate of Achievement as of received for June 30, 12. Again, this CAFR will be presented for the June 30, 13 year end, again hoping that indeed you do meet those standards. So this ain't done in every city or town, okay? So these numbers just don't appear. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into this process besides the numbers that we develop for the basic financial statements. Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Brett, and we do appreciate your report and your work on that, and Mr. Gresham for joining him this evening. Thank you both for your work and assistance on this, and truly we do wish to echo the comments both of your report and of the administrator. Mr. Seifert, again, thank you for your work, and I know not all of your staff has joined you, but I think we absolutely have to recognize Ms. Howell back there before she explodes with pride, because she has absolutely glowed as this report has been given, and so we appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Mr. Driggers, it's going to be a hard act to follow, but your report is up, sir.
Briefly, if I may, to echo your earlier comments, it was indeed a great weekend in the community. The celebrations that we had Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, ushering in the Christmas holidays, are extraordinary. It was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity in our community to celebrate the holiday and to usher in the Christmas season. Just to be able to spend time with our employees and our families and their children on Friday evening with supper with Santa, and then with our community with breakfast with Santa all day on Saturday. It's why we do what we do on the recreation department side of things. It was truly a wonderful event. We do have a few things that are coming up for us this week. We want to remind you that we are recognizing and all of our employees in the Employee Appreciation Breakfast. That is an annual event for us, and that will be taking place this Friday morning here in City Hall, here in the Event Center. So we invite you to enjoy some time with us on Friday morning. We will start at 7 o'clock for coffee and conversation, with breakfast at 7:30. It's going to be a special time for us, and we hope your schedule will allow you to join all of the members of Team Greer. As we approach the Christmas holiday, do keep in mind that we will be closed. Our offices will be closed on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and also we will be closed on New Year's Day. There will be alternative schedules for garbage collection during those weeks. We publish those well in advance. We'll make sure that we announce that through our media resources as well as it'll be on our cable channel and our website with information on those alternative schedules. But wanted to make sure we're aware of that. Of course, as we always mention, public safety, those folks are on normal schedules and will be on task through those holidays as well. They will have the opportunity to celebrate and spend time with their families at another time. But public safety, fire, and police, we operate on a normal schedule, obviously. That concludes my report. If there's any information that we can share with council or answer any questions that you may have, we're certainly available to do that this evening, or as we would leave this meeting tonight, we're always available by email, by telephone, and in person when you drop by. I do not have any items for consideration in executive session unless there are items that would come directly from council. That would conclude my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry. I do apologize. Mr. Seifert asked me earlier that he wanted to make a special introduction tonight of a new member of Team Greer, and we wanted to allow for that time. Thank you.
All righty, great.
Thank you, Mr. Seifert.
Thank you, Mr. Driggers. Just want to take just a real quick second. Derek, if you'll stand up with us. This is our new IT systems engineer, has joined us a little over 2 weeks ago. You may have seen him at our last meeting, and I forgot to introduce him then, but I want to do it tonight. This is Derek Aldrich, and again, helping us on the IT side. So any questions or help or you may be requesting, you can now, we have another resource. And I want to thank you very much for allowing that opportunity and staffing that position. This is Derek.
Thank you. Derek, given our track record, you'll get to spend plenty of time with the council members. You'll know us well before long, because I'm sure Jim's going to be handing you off on a regular basis. Folks, having received the administrator's report, I want to move on to appointments of boards and commission. We deferred this at our last meeting. The Housing Authority of Greer has a term that needs to be filled. Sorrel's Strange term ended 10/31/2013. As you will see from the letter that accompanies this, Mr. Strange would like to continue his service to the Housing Authority. It comes with a recommendation from Ms. Fowler at the Housing Authority. I'll entertain a motion that we reappoint Sorrel Strange to a 5-year term on the Greer Housing Authority. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions in regards to his appointment? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council will move to items of old business, the first of which is the second and final reading of Annexation Ordinance 33-2013. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of properties owned by Oinsley Enterprises, LLP, located at South Highway 14 at Johns Road by 100% petition, and to establish a zoning classification of C3 for said property. Mr. Pace?
Mayor and Council, the Planning Commission did hold a public hearing in regards to this on October the 21st. We have delayed second reading until this time, but no one spoke in favor or in opposition to the request on October, so we do recommend unanimous approval of this.
Recommendation for approval. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further questions of Mr. Pace in regards to this matter?
They're ready to go on that property?
Yes, representative is here tonight, and right after the first of the year should be kicking that project off.
Other comments? Questions? Thank you for joining us, sir. We appreciate you sitting through the first part of this meeting to be with us this evening. But appreciate your presence and thank you for being a part of this process. Hearing none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. Second and final reading of Annexation Ordinance 37-2013. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by the City of Greer located at 1725, 1726, 1727 American Legion Road by 100% petition and to establish a zoning classification of R7.5 for said property. Mr. Pace?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, the Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on November the 18th. No one spoke in favor or in opposition to the request. Planning Commission recommended unanimous approval.
Comes to council for second reading with unanimous approval with recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Questions? Discussion? Comments?
We sure about the owners of this property?
Good group. Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. Second and final reading of ordinance 38-2013, an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by Brannon Drive LLC located at 107 Brannon Drive from OD to C2. Mr. Pace?
No new information in regards to this, Mr. Mayor.
No new information comes with recommendation. Do I hear a motion to receive?
So moved.
Second.
Motion, second. Any comments, discussion, questions? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood.
Yes.
Ms. Bookert.
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Ms. Albert.
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Second and final reading of ordinance 39-2013, an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by Kenneth Messer located at 111 Brannon Drive from OD to C2. Mr. Pace?
Again, no new information, Mr. Mayor.
No new information in regards to ordinance 39-2013 comes with a recommendation. Do I hear a motion to receive?
So moved.
Second.
Motion, second. Further discussion? Questions? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood.
Yes.
Ms. Bookert.
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Ms. Albert. Yes. Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, our first item of new business this evening, the first reading of annexation ordinance 41-2013. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by Clarence C. Hipp located at 490 Snow Road by 100% petition and to establish a zoning classification of R12 for said property. Mr. Pace?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request for annexation and zoning of the property located at Burns Road and Snow Road, approximately 64.7 acres. Currently vacant right now. Sewer line does run across this property. This is in the area south of 85. It is under consideration for single-family dwelling community and subdivision of 194 single-family dwellings to be constructed on this location.
By show of hand, is the owner of the property or the representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? For the record, show that no one indicated so. I'll entertain a motion for discussion. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion. Questions of Mr. Pace?
This lie in the Pelham-Batesville Fire District.
No, sir. It's
Reasonable.
in Reasonable.
Any discussions?
No, sir, not at this time.
No, we would follow the protocol of notifying them of the property being annexed into the city.
This portion is in Spartanburg County, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, it is in Spartanburg.
From an annexation perspective, it is important. We are following our infill directive. This is not an extension of the boundaries of the city. This is using the existing city limits and utilizing infill development.
Glenn, you mentioned the number of houses. How is that something pretty firm with the number of houses, or is everything?
I'm sure it will fluctuate, Mr. Airwood. Once
Value-
they start.
value of homes?
Values have not been discussed at this time.
Nor size?
No, sir.
Others?
Mr. Pace, what are we typically seeing in the area south of 85 relative to size and price range?
Sizes have been in the square footage over most 2,500 and above in square footage, and cost-wise in the average of $225,000 to $325,000.
And that's above our break-even point.
Within range. One of the things that we certainly anticipate as we continue to see residential development in this area, what this and other development that is occurring in that area will be the commercial that will follow that.
Others?
What do we say our break-even range was? 220, 250?
right at the 225 yeah. Actually, I think it's a little, I'll verify, but I think it's even a little less than that.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
It's in the range specifically.
Do you know if this will fall in the Spartanburg School District?
It is outside of the Greenville County Special District that goes into Spartanburg.
Spartanburg District
I don't know
It would
which
be
school.
5, that's what I thought.
It's beyond the new Spartanburg Elementary School out there, so
Yeah,
I'm sure it
Abner
would be.
Creek or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
We are communicating with Spartanburg District 5 relative to the amount of residential growth that we are planning for in that area based on development conversations with us. It is one of the reasons that the elementary school was built there by Spartanburg District 5. And as we are aware, there is additional land that they have in that area for additional facilities in the future.
Have they been, I know sometimes other agencies, they won't do their own thing instead of working with another agency. How do you feel? I mean, is that going to be something that's really good for the residents, that both the school district and the city are trying to work together? I mean, do you feel like that's...
I would certainly anticipate they are working hard to plan for that development as it occurs. So I think you'll see facilities that are planned for and built as that development is occurring over time. Obviously, this project or even the projects we have on the table do not put those facilities at capacity. But those facilities will fill as we continue to grow in that area, and they are aware of that and they are planning for that.
Yeah.
Others? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Council.
Thank you. Council Chief Reynolds would like to present the Law Enforcement Assistance and Support Agreement with Spartanburg County.
Mayor and Council, this is a standard law enforcement and support agreement. We sign about every 10 years. We're upgrading all of our support agreements with Greenville County and other agencies, the airport, and this is the first one signed by the county of Spartanburg. And we're asking that we're here to notify you that we want to go or enter into this agreement. Basically what it says is if they call us and need support or assistance, that we'll go, and primarily it's for priority calls and emergencies that they need our assistance. I think we've called upon them more than they've called upon us in the past for assistance when we need it.
Just as a matter of clarification, if I may, Mayor and Council, as we were looking at these policies, one of the things that we wanted to be particularly attentive to is the fact that it's a mutual agreement, and we recognize that there will be times that we would be called upon to assist the county for properties that are not located within the municipal boundaries of the city of Greer. We would be providing our services to non-city residents. I had great concern about that, and we spent a great amount of time looking at that, and we've made modifications to this agreement, and we've had very clear communications. One is that we will always assist law enforcement agencies when there is danger to public safety, particularly if there is danger to an officer, that an officer needs assistance, or we have someone in the public that is in immediate need of assistance. What we were careful in this agreement is that we're not going to respond to stolen bicycles, we're not going to respond to vandalism, we're not going to respond to those types of routine law enforcement issues. This is when there is a need for assistance for someone's safety. They assist us, and we assist them when that need occurs. Because of past litigation and on a statewide basis involving agreements for mutual aid and jurisdiction. We found it necessary, and we've had these come before us before, we have found it necessary that the governing bodies of both the county and the municipality, that it is necessary for those agreements to be approved by those governing bodies so that the jurisdictional authority is granted. So when our officers assist Spartanburg County, we have jurisdictional authority outside the city limits to do that by this agreement. And of course, they already have jurisdictional authority within our city limits because we're obviously within their county.
Questions?
Chief, when I was on the fire department, I recall on several occasions where the fire department would respond to a scene that was, I guess at the time it was the East Greer Fire District, which would not be in the city, and there would be the need for law enforcement, immediate, and of course, calling a deputy took a lot of time. Have you talked with the fire chief and the county? If that need arises, can they just immediately request us to go out to assist? And you follow what I'm saying?
If there's an emergency situation, yeah, the fire department would go through the sheriff's office, and the sheriff's office would ask us to please sit with that unit until they arrive.
Right.
And that's what they've done in the past.
Okay.
And this agreement allows us to do that.
Good.
Others? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Ms. Booker.
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Ms. Albert.
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, we have no items for executive session this evening. I hope you will join us Friday morning at the city breakfast if you have the opportunity to do so. Hopefully I will see each and every one of you between now and Christmas, but if not, have a Merry Christmas and safe holiday season. And with that, we stand adjourned.